Hi, welcome back, everyone. So, last video I shared was about the conference in Austin, Texas, held at a community college funded by Elon Musk. Well, I guess he donated some money to it, and going through it, it's really deep. There's a lot of stuff to it. Like there's a lot of different people involved. So, honestly, there's so much to it. It's either like something that I have to release in pieces or do like a live stream like I did with Citizen Go because it's complicated. So in this one, I want to talk about predominantly how I started with just, okay, who is at the conference? What is it about? And then it led me to an article about it, and I kind of wanted to show like how I find it interesting. The article never says anything about them being eugenicists. So first, though, just to refresh your memory, this is what the video I released, the last video I released, a little clip of that to get you kind of caught up. The controversial natalist conference to feature eugenics advocates. What's really weird is, according to the email person who sent the email, it was eugenics advocates, so it sounds like they're for eugenics. And then, all right, so this is just a list of the speakers who were involved. You have Jordan Lasker, you have Richard Lynn, a guy named Tatu. I'm not really sure how to pronounce his name. Well, he wasn't a speaker, but he's highly involved in the eugenics scene and project. Bryan Pesta, Emil, who, I mean, this is a self-proclaimed like far-right fascist, like swastikas, stuff like that, Nazi symbols. And one thing particular about Emil is something that I've seen quite prominently in the far-right circle. I found a psychologist once, got kicked off of several panels, several academic panels. He got kicked off of one academic panel for writing a paper about race realism. He got kicked off of another panel for writing about why he thinks people should be able to do pedophilia. And there seems to be a large group of people within the far right community that seem to be very, very much in favor of pedophilia for some reason. There seems to be, and I think that has to do with the whole if it bleeds, it breeds kind of thing. It's very common. It's even more strange. You know, one of the negative stereotypes or gross overgeneralizations. It's really neither of those. It's just flat out bigotry, accusing the LGBTQ community of doing things to kids, and sex crimes. The LGBTQ LGBTQIA plus community only make up like 0.01% of all sex crimes. So, and then you have these people on here, these white supremacists that hate LGBTQIA plus people, and they're outright advocating for lowering the age of consent all the way down to like 13, sometimes 12 years old, sometimes as young as 9. So that's something about this one, I see another crossover between the far right fascist, pro-eugenics, bigot people crossing over into the whole pedophilia community. Then there's Kevin Dolan, who Kevin Dolan is the guy that had the X handle Daznat that Elon Musk was pushing in the X algorithm. And again, self-proclaimed pro-natalist, eugenicist. He's the one that calls Kevin Dolan is the one who calls his eugenics liberal eugenics. and this is, it's about looking at for polygenetics in embryos to see if the child will have a child with a high IQ. And he claims that it's a 50 to 80% accuracy. It's actually more like 10, 20. And most geneticists will tell you, we don't really know what causes high IQ. You can get 2 parents with low IQs that have a child that has a high IQ. You can get 2 parents with high IQ and they'll give birth to a child with low IQ. So genetics might have like maybe a little bit to do with it, but not everything to do with it. And we're not entirely sure where high IQ comes from, or if IQ is even relevant. So Kevin Dolan, yeah. So one of the other things I found about the Emil person is that he wants to clone Elon Musk. He wants to clone Elon Musk. Strange. So that's the people involved with this eugenics conference. But I mean, one of them's dead, died in 2015, so he couldn't have possibly have gone. But somehow he's connected, probably through his works, something that he published, a paper. So what I find interesting is what's happening. The calling it liberal eugenics. Well, upon looking through this stuff, I find a news article that actually by Fox that covers Kevin Dolan, the liberal eugenics guy, and they don't mention anything about Kevin Dolan's work being eugenics at all. They don't even call it liberal eugenics. And I would like to show that article. Yeah, the article is called. It's called "Rise of the Superbaby?" ? U.S. startup offers genetic IQ. ... So let's have a look at that. All right, so wouldn't you know it, on the Fox, it won't let me play it. Not just because there's an ad blocker. It just literally won't. It wants me to pay for access, so I have to buy a subscription. I'm not buying a subscription. All right, so I mean, I've tried many times to play it. It won't do it. So even with the ad, it won't let me view the article. It won't let me read it. It won't let me view it. It wants me to, have a a subscription. But you can see right here, I mean, rise of the superbaby U.S. startup, which that's the Kevin Dolan guy, DASNet, offers genetic IQ screening for wealthy elite report. As we already saw in that, what he's doing is he's screening, looking for polygenetic markers that would indicate high IQ according to Kevin Dolan. He says it's like I said, 80 or 50 to 80%. It isn't that. It's nowhere close to that. So before I exit back to just the regular screen, I want to go over some of the tabs that I had on these people that I found, because we really need to talk about this. So the embryo screening for her higher IQ, other traits, raises ethical concerns comparison to eugenics. The real problem that I see and that I find interesting about this is that they don't really bring up the fact that as far as I'm aware, like I said, I can't view it. It won't let me. As far as I'm aware, they don't bring up that Kevin Dolan is a self-proclaimed eugenicist. They don't bring up that he is a self-proclaimed white supremacist, pro-fascism, pro-natalist, homophobic, transphobic, racist. They don't bring any of that up as far as I'm aware. Like I said, I can't read the article, so the way that the article is phrased, though, rise of the superbaby, U.S. startup offers genetic IQ screening. So the way that it's worded, like, no, we're not talking about genetically modifying babies so everybody gets a baby with a high IQ. We're talking about looking at embryos to see if there's a possibility. Remember, he's claiming 50 to 80%. Is actually more like 10%. And as eugenics usually go, if they don't think the person is going to have a child with a high IQ, then that embryo does not gestate to a human being. This isn't high IQ babies for everybody. This is only the embryos, only the people who they claim will make high IQ babies get to reproduce. None of this is mentioned. None of it. And just because you put the word liberal in front of eugenics doesn't mean that there's anything liberal about it. And it gets into all these other problems when it comes to the fact of the matter is, when it comes to nature, one of the laws of nature is having a high genetic variance. The human species has a very, very low genetic variance. So like between any given two humans, it's about like 0.01% genetic variance between any two given human beings. And nature really likes genetic diversity. And the longer a species has been on the planet, typically the more genetic variance that species is going to have. Human beings have not been around for very long, so it stands to reason why human beings have such a low genetic variance. So that stands to reason. But nature really, really likes high genetic diversity, and human beings just haven't been around long enough to have very high genetic diversity. So by limiting the mating pool significantly, while you're not necessarily engaging in incest, if you limit the genetic diversity enough within the human species, it's about doing the same thing. You're going to end up with a lot of birth defects and offspring with very low IQ. But so like this is complicated because of the way that all of it's being framed. They're not framing it like we're scanning instead of embryos, let's say we're scanning fetuses to see if they're going to have a high IQ. Instead, they're kind of framing it like we're genetically modifying them, whereas CRISPR genetic modification is not that advanced to actually be able to genetically alter a child to have high IQ. And that already has ethical concerns in and of itself. People have already raised ethical concerns. Should we be able to genetically modify a fetus to have blonde hair, blue eyes, etc., etc.? We already look at that and go, that's really bad. And you're also creating a situation where there's low genetic variance, low genetic diversity, which is bad for our species. You don't want to do that. So they're not framing it in the sense of, no, they're not genetically modifying the fetuses. We're talking about scanning fetuses to see if they will develop into a person with a high IQ. So if that embryo is not going to produce a child with a high IQ, what are they going to do with it? I really don't think a lot of people on the right are very logically consistent or very consistent with values, with like anti-abortion. I don't know that they would consider it abortion if they were scanning embryos and found an embryo that was going to suggest that the offspring would have a low IQ as an abortion. I think that they would see that as the continuation to further their goal. I think the higher up you go in the tier brackets of the far right of white supremacists, pro-oligarchs, pro-monarchs, pro-theocrats, and pro-fascists, I don't think they really care about the ethical or moral concerns of abortion like many of the Republican Christian voters. Some even might even be willing to say that they're Christo-fascist white supremacist types and say, well, abortion is wrong because it goes against God, yada, 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 yada. But the people who head these campaigns, the thinkers in it, they're really just kind of manipulating these masses. I don't think that they really care about the moral or ethical concerns of abortions or lack thereof. I think their ultimate overall goal is to just obtain basically, like the Ubermensch, like the perfect race, blonde hair, blue eyes, good immune system, strong, high IQ, elite bloodline would probably be preferable to these people. The ultimate goal essentially is a homogeneous society that is ruled by a strong arm authoritarian, a dictator. I think that's just the goal of the top echelon, the thinkers within the white supremacist movement. And I think most of the white supremacists you see are not the top tier thinkers. I think most of them are just followers, and this is why you see so much logical inconsistency within Trump supporters, within the right-wing conservative MAGA movement, of why, like they will flip so easily and move the goalpost all the time, or seemingly have no values. But before I get off of this, I just want to show you. So I want to go over this. So this is Emil's. It's I'm not saying this is like a incredibly reliable source, rational wiki. It just has some information that I want to read real quick. So talks about changing his name. I don't care about that. Is a Danish white supremacist and eugenicist who is the founder of the Human Diversity Foundation and publisher of the far right Apora magazine. Emil is most infamous for being an activist for the legislation of child pornography, legislation of incest. Again, this is the incest thing that goes back to bloodline, like that kind of thing. The Ubermensch, the perfect race, which they always think it's white people. And lowering the age of consent to 13 or younger. Stance is taken especially while associated with internet-oriented activism, such as in the Pirate Party movement. Among his other controversial views are his belief that homosexuality is a mental illness, defense of polygenetic embryo selection, and support for human cloning. So, yeah, this is Emil, and this is Emil talking about wanting to clone Elon Musk. Yes, Elon should clone himself now. He wants to clone Elon Musk. Here's more on him. Pictures of him. I couldn't find any pictures of him with Musk. When I tried to look to see if he's actually met with Musk in real time, this was all I found, is that he wanted to clone him. I also have this. It's just this is that wiki, Rational Wiki article about him. This is his actual website here. I should probably go through that at some point. Here, we're gonna... I'll read this at some point. It's just... I'm sure that people read this and think, wow, mind-blowing, really smart person or something, but it's... when you start talking about somebody who's doing this, like... arguing for pedophilia and incest, and then polygenetic embryo selection. I mean, how can this person... how can anyone, like, if you know about genetics, how could you think that this person really knows what they're talking about? If you're advocating for incest and pedophilia, like, and doing polygenetic embryo selection, you're talking about significantly limiting the genetic variation, the genetic diversity within the human species. And I mean, these white supremacists, it's hard to take their quote unquote science. It's just pseudoscience. Seriously, it's just pseudoscience. Here's Kevin Dolan. We talked about him. I tried to see if Kevin, like I find this interesting. So, they've been having pro-birth conferences and involving speeches from these types of people. Kevin Dolan is a self-proclaimed far-right fascist neo-Nazi. You have Steve Bannon here talking about the pro-natalist conference that took place. I'll open that in a new tab. I need to talk about that at some point in my investigation. So this is Kevin Dolan 2023 Natal Conference. In our lifetime, every government, every culture, every belief system, and every family on Earth will pass through a bottleneck tighter than the Black Death, predicated on one question: will your children have children of their own? That this is fear mongering. Oh my God, what if my children don't have children? They most likely will. And to make the claim that it's going to wipe out the same amount of people, the population on the earth as bubonic plague is you don't have a crystal ball. This is insane to make this proclamation. I don't know if you know this, but bubonic plague wiped out 3/4 of the world's human population, like the entire world, not just Europe. 3/4. Humanity almost did not survive bubonic plague through the Middle Ages. So no, this is fear mongering. This is he's using the fear mongering to push the narrative of the white supremacist narrative and eugenics. And he actually, there was actually a thing where I found of Kevin Dolan with Elon Musk. Let's see if I can find that. Well, I can't find it right now, but guess what? I took a screenshot, so ha 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 ha. So I'll put the screenshot up right here. And so when looking for Kevin Dolan and Elon Musk, it showed, this is what it was. Elite couple breeding to save mankind. So I don't need to put the screenshot up because it's right here. This was something that Kevin Dolan was doing at the Eugenics conference in Austin, Texas. He was taking very rich people and having them go and meet in a hotel room, a very, very nice hotel room, and supposedly, like, what might be occurring, they can't come right out and say it would be illegal, is that he's already doing these polygenetic embryo scans for elite people in hotel rooms for a large sum of money. And so this is one of the things that I found in looking for a connection directly with Kevin Dolan and Elon Musk, although there's already a connection with Kevin Dolan and Elon Musk because Kevin Dolan is on X with the Twitter handle. Let me see. I have to. Here we go. The conference scheduled for 28th through 29th of March is being organized by Kevin Dolan, who The Guardian identified in 2021 as the person behind a Twitter account that was promoted in the far-right Desnat movement. Oh, I guess his Twitter handle isn't Desnat. He's part of a far-right movement called Desnat. And last year, as the organizer of the first conference, it is the second time the conference has been held. And once again, the speakers roster runs from provocateurs who emerged from the fascist fitness scene to practitioners of quote unquote liberal eugenics. The Natal Conference website embeds a Musk post on X reading. So this is something that Elon Musk posted. If birth rates continue to plummet, human civilization will end. Musk, who repeatedly has at least 13 children by 4 mothers, was in recent days confronted on X by musician. Well, we already know all that, but in this article, it talks about how Elon Musk has boosted Kevin Dolan's X account by liking, retweeting, and boosting him in the algorithm. So there you go. There's Kevin Dolan for you. And I haven't even really looked into these ones. Bryan Pesta. However, the fuck you say this? Richard Lynn and Jordan Lasker. All right, so I think I'm going to wrap this up. I really wanted to look at that Fox News article because I have a feeling the reason why they're not really saying everything, I have a feeling they're not telling you the guy with the startup company is a self-proclaimed far-right fascist, self-proclaimed fascist, self-proclaimed eugenicist. I have a feeling why they're not talking about liberal eugenics. I have a feeling as looking at the landscape of everything that has been going on, what has been occurring is what they're doing right now is by talking about like, children with super IQs, the rise of the super babies, blah, 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 blah. Right now, it just appears to be normalizing this stuff. And so, like, if I'm out on the street and I go up to somebody and they don't really know a whole lot about this, but they heard about it on Fox or whatever far right media channel that they consume, and I talk about Kevin Dolan or Emil and they're fascists, they're neo-Nazis, they're white supremacists, this is eugenics. You know, that this, how things have been going is the response I'll more than likely get is, no, they're not. That's fake. You're just, a far leftist. You don't know what you're talking about. You're just a radical leftist. But then later on, they'll introduce it as liberal eugenics. And then you could approach that person again and say, aha, see, I told you it's eugenics. And they go, oh, no, but it's what the MAGA supporter will do is say, oh, but it's different. It's not eugenics. It's liberal eugenics, which is better because it has the word liberal in front of it. So that makes it better. And then later on, like I said, this has just been the trend that I've been seeing. Like this lack of values, constant goalpost shifting. You said you asked somebody like 2 years ago, like on one of the MAGA people, a conservative, right-leaning person, would you ever support a president running for a third term? No, absolutely not. And then, today, as Trump is starting to talk about it more and more, would you support a president running third term? Well, I think, Trump, blah, blah, blah. And then there's excuses. The goalpost has moved. The goalpost has shifted. They're not talking about the Constitution and how it matters to them when it comes to that issue as much anymore. The goalpost has shifted. So later, I think they'll drop the word liberal and just be eugenics. And by this time, the right-wing media will have normalized it so much to the point where they just accept it. It's kind of like this push. There's definitely a weaponization of media, of an information war where they are normalizing things that should not be normalized and pushing the Overton window further to the right, and normalizing things like having a president for life, or basically a dictator, or, like a monarchy, theocracy, ignoring the Constitution and allowing a president to serve for life kind of thing. Like they're normalizing this type of stuff, which is moving things very far right, further right than most traditional Republicans are even comfortable with. Even Mitch McConnell is not comfortable with this type of stuff. So, definitely those on the left, this is not good, but it's an information war. And I think that's what they're doing is they're introducing this this polygenetic embryo scanning, little bit by little bit. They're introducing it now as, oh, it's a startup company. It raises possible concerns. It's kind of like eugenics, but hey, everybody will have babies with high IQs, and then normalize that. Then start going, well, actually, it's liberal eugenics. And so then when anyone who, it doesn't matter if they're a traditional, like old school Republican, or a liberal or a leftist, anyone that approaches them like, this is a eugenicist. No, they're not a eugenicist. And then later on, it'll be like, well, yeah, they're a eugenicist, but they're a liberal eugenicist. So it's different. They're one of you guys. They just do eugenics. So it's different. And then later on, they're going to drop the liberal, and it's just going to be eugenics. And by that time, all these followers, these people who seem to not have the ability to have values or be logically consistent in anything, will have accepted this idea that, oh, eugenics are fine, even though if you asked them 2 years ago, they would have been like, no, eugenics is horrible. It would have been something everyone agreed on. I think that's the goal. I think that's what we're looking at, and I think that's why it's being reported that way. That's what I think. I don't know, but that's what I think. That seems to be the general trend of what's been happening. So, there's still, like, as you saw, there is so much more to cover about this. So much. It's overwhelming. And this is just a tiny little chisel off of a giant iceberg, much like the Citizen Go thing was. It's just, with the Citizen Go, it's just like you open up one page, and then that leads to questions. It leads to opening up more, and you unveil this entire network of people connected to an organization all around the world. And social media has been wonderful. It's opened up communications with people all around the world, but it offered that same service to the far right. And I think what we're seeing is different sections of the far right, like pro-oligarchs, eugenicists, fascists, white separatists, pro-theocracies, pro-monarchy type people, coming together, and they're working together to create this information war, a propaganda machine to brainwash people. Like, I love right-wing media, how it says this. It says, like they try to convince their audience, if you go to left-wing media, you're going to get brainwashed, and the only way to stay out of a media bubble, the only way to stay out of an echo chamber, the only way to stay on brainwash is to consume the media right here. And then they reaffirm it by saying, well, you watch our right-wing media because you're a critical thinker, because you're smart. So that's a very interesting psychological trick there. They're basically saying the only way to avoid a media bubble is to stay in a media bubble. And to me, that's a red flag. If an organization, a cult or religion or anything says, or news organization says, do not listen to any other news organization other than us, I think the very first thing you should do is go and see what the other news organizations are saying. This is not the same thing as a bunch of news organizations and a bunch of political people saying Fox has become state-ran propaganda. There's a difference between that and saying literal, like what Fox is doing or other right-wing media content is saying everything but them is propaganda. There's a difference between those two things. It's manipulative as hell. Anyway, like, share, subscribe, comment, and all that good stuff. So hopefully I'll get the audio quality fixed. I don't know what's going on with that. And out.